Hello, my name is Parker. I apologize for the poor lighting. It'll come and go as I walk. Been walking a lot these days. It's one of the only things that I know how to do. I'm making this video because, I spend a lot of time on YouTube and whatever else, Quora, Ask Reddit. Spend a lot of time on a lot of these apps and websites, and I kind of realized something as I used them to help with my suffering. So today I'm going to talk about heartbreak, betrayal, lying, and a lot of things that are involved with the end of a relationship, my experience with them, and maybe some insights on helping you make a decision about your relationship, or to hopefully not only make you maybe feel better about a relationship that has recently ended for you, but also to let you know that you're not alone and that your thoughts aren't weird or abnormal, and they certainly do not define you or decide your future. To preface, I'm a 27-year-old man. I live in Colorado. I have a job that pays fine. I live in a house. I rent, but I live in a house. I certainly do feel at times that my life is somewhat mundane, but I also think that that's because of some things that we'll talk about, as well as because, the economy is tough right now for a lot of people. Getting by, it's expensive, but I digress. This video is less about that and more about what you're probably here for, is to maybe search for some reassurance or comfort, or maybe some insight and understanding onto your situation. So again, to preface, I am about 1 month post breakup. My partner and I, in my most recent relationship, spent the last 2.5, almost 3 years together. We've lived together for about 1.5 or so of those years. And our relationship came to an end due to quite a few different reasons that I'm going to talk about here. From lying to cheating to incompatibilities and lack of communication, microaggression, a lot of stuff. Okay, so let's start from the beginning, shall we? Number one, relationships are like a terrarium, so to speak. They are encapsulated by two people who, when things work the way they're supposed to, when people communicate and understand each other how they're supposed to, they're self-sufficient, with maybe a little bit of water from time to time. However, there must be a foundation on which your relationship is built on. So, the first thing I'm gonna say is that starting a new relationship, you must build that foundation. And that foundation includes communication, trust, and a lot of love language. I think that a lot of people are just kind of in a rush to, get to the good, get to the meat, marriage, kids, house, cars, whatever. And they don't spend enough time truly getting to know each other, nurturing each other, learning about each other truly, deeply, what they do, like, what they like, what they don't like, how to tell when they're upset, or how to know what to do when they're having a bad day, learning about them and their passions, their traumas, things like that. These are the things that are certainly, sorry, my watch. These are the things that are certainly the most important part of a relationship. The foundation that you build your relationship on should be these things, because when you move in with someone and you play house together and you start a life, that comes with a lot of extra stuff. And if you haven't worked out your compatibilities with your partner, red flags, green flags, because everybody has them. Things you are willing to compromise on, things you're willing to not compromise on. If you haven't come to terms with these things, living together will only make things worse. So again, before you go and start a life with someone, certainly build that foundation. That's number one. Know who they are. If I would have done this in my last relationship, I probably wouldn't have been in the relationship to begin with. And that's the other purpose of this. If I would have known my partner truly, I would have known that we weren't compatible people. And while we shared some values in life, we certainly did not see eye to eye on a lot of things. And also, we did not know how to handle each other. And while this is something that can be learned 100%, I do think that there are just certain types of people that don't handle certain things very well. For example, I'm kind of an anxious, energetic person, okay? However, I'm also very empathetic. My partner at the time, my most recent partner, also had some severe anxiety. However, her style or form of anxiety was expressed as anxious irritability. Anxious, dare I say, negativity. Now, that isn't to say that this person, my partner, was negative all the time. They weren't necessarily pessimistic. They weren't like sulking in the sorrows, just being kind of all the time. However, my partner, when anxious, became quickly irritable, was very quick to snap and attack me and lose their patience or temper with me. And because I did not spend enough time getting to know my partner before we lived together, it was kind of too late when I had realized that this was who she was. She spent the better part of 2 years working on this issue with therapy and medication. But the reality is that's just the type of person she is. Anxiety is for life, and some people express it in different ways. I certainly will say that she did make good strides towards being less of that way. However, it was something that, because of my empathetic nature, really affected me. I'm not someone who is easily how do I say this? Generally speaking, it is not easy for me to shrug off really negative stuff. And it's difficult to be around someone who's negative all the time and, well, maybe not all the time, but who's negative a lot. Because although for them, it's just kind of like, oh, they're negative, and then they move on with their day. For me, it was kind of corrosive. So, again, this is something that was very prevalent in my partner. However, it wasn't something that I really understood about them and came to terms with because of how quickly we moved. We didn't build that foundation where we really knew each other and knew each other's weaknesses and strengths. And again, this is something for me, because of who I am, was probably non-negotiable. I did try for a long time to kind of just shrug it off or let it go or not deal with it. But it didn't work for me. And in time, it slowly turned me into a person who was very quick tempered and had a difficulty just letting it go. And it would affect the way I treated her, how I viewed myself, how I viewed our relationship. It was toxic. So, number one thing, build that foundation. Honestly, there's really only 3 different points that I have, or recommendations, I guess. And then I will also kind of touch on just some stuff that I know people struggle with in breakups. Some things I've realized. So, number 2. When it is time for you to start your life together and get a dog, buy a car together, move in together, whatever the case may be, get married. If you've built that foundation, then you're gonna know there are things about your partner that bother you, that you struggle to deal with, that annoy you. And I'm here to tell you that relationships are certainly about compromise. Now, what I said in point 1 about foundations and not knowing some of my partner's, should I say, red flags, that was non-compromisable for me, or uncompromisable. I was not willing to compromise on that because there are just things about you that are you, and that's okay. And some people are going to tell you like, oh yeah, like you should do anything you can, to change, to be better for your partner. But I don't necessarily agree with that. So that ties into part 2, which is compromising will always be a thing. However, if you go into your relationship thinking that you're going to change your partner, or they're going to change to be how you need them to be or want them to be, you're going to be very disappointed, because that's not the nature of people. People can change, certainly. However, people also don't change. And that's okay, because there are some things that you shouldn't change about yourself. So going into a relationship expecting change is really setting it up for disaster. There are certainly things that you can just compromise on. I never changed that I was an empathetic person. I tried to compromise by ignoring it or letting it go. However, that was not something I was able to do, but kind of what I'm talking about here. So, number 2, go into the relationship with the realization or the expectation or the understanding that what you see is what you get. You either love them for what they are, or frankly, get out while you can. Because I would say that in my experience, while people can change, expecting them to will always be to the detriment of a healthy relationship. So we have 1, build a good foundation. Don't move in too quick together. Really learn who you and they are and how you and they work together. And number 2 is love unconditionally and learn to adapt to things that are within your moral, ethical, or empathetic ability to adapt to. Number 3, and I think that this is something that really applies to my relationship a lot, is it's a kind of a 2-parter where it's appreciate the little things and don't sweat the small stuff. One of my relationship's biggest issues is that my partner and I failed to appreciate the little things that we would do for each other, while also blowing small, stupid things that aren't really even worth fighting about out of proportion. Relationships are interesting because people expect their partner, they expect so much from their partner. They expect them to be their best friend, their best roommate, their best partner in crime, or whatever you want to say. People expect a lot from their partners. And frankly, it's not fair. We're only human and nobody's perfect. People are going to argue. You're going to fight. You're going to have disagreements. Now, the term picking your battles certainly is a important thing to consider, because while you are going to fight about things, sometimes it might be easier to just say, you know what, this isn't even worth fighting about. Because there are going to be fights. And appreciating the small things your partner does for you is, in my opinion, one of the most important things in a relationship. People get really caught up in their lives and work and school and whatever else it is they're doing that they forget to show appreciation. You know, I saw a video somewhat recently about a divorce attorney talking about one of the number one things that he thinks is the cause for the downfall of a lot of relationships. And he thinks that, again, it's failure to do little things and appreciate little things that your partner does. And the example he used was a husband and wife who, the wife liked to eat granola every morning. And she had a bag of granola that she kept in the kitchen. And every time it was empty, the very next day or whatever, there would be a new bag. She wouldn't have to ask for it. She wouldn't have to mention it at all. It was just there. And in return, she did some favors for her husband that he enjoyed, which I won't go into too much detail about, but I would imagine you understand where I'm coming from. And some may scoff at that. However, you know, sexual interaction is a very important part of a relationship. And it would be on this list. However, it really kind of ties into point number 3. As having sex with your partner or being sexual with your partner is really very simple. And frankly, it's not that difficult. So I don't consider it like this big deal. But anyway, so this couple, you know, had these 2 small things that they did for each other. And it made them both very happy, and it made them feel seen, heard. It made them feel important. It made them feel like their partner knew them and understood them. And it's so simple. It's so small. Such a small thing that did a lot. And guess what? The attorney asked the woman, how did you know when the relationship was over? And she said, well, one day the oatmeal ran out and it never got refilled. So the point is that they stopped doing small little things for each other and their relationship failed. And now that I'm certain that wasn't the only reason, but that's why there are 3 main things, right? So do those small little gestures for your partner and make sure, they should be being done for you. Because anybody who cares about you, loves you, and wants to see you happy will do those things, no questions asked anyway. So, again, to kind of run it back one more time. Number 1, build that foundation. A relationship is nothing without a strong foundation, as well as while building that foundation, you might find out that this isn't something you want, which can save you from being in the situation that I'm in. Number 2, sorry, there's somebody. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, I'm just on the phone. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, Where were we? Number one, build that foundation. Number two is to God, what was number two? I forgot. What are we talking about? ADHD, sorry. I forgot what number two was. Guys, I'm sorry. I have severe ADHD, so, and that person distracted the shit out of me. Go back in the video. Number two, I'll come to you in a second. But number three, what we just talked about was to don't sweat the small stuff, and the small gestures and details are very important. So, if you follow those three pretty simple steps, really, you will certainly save yourself from being in the position I was in, or am, where I'm 27 and frankly I'm starting over now because my partner, who is a good person, you know, I did love very much, but wasn't right for me. So lastly, I do want to talk about some stuff. I know it's really easy for people to kind of fall into those like breakup tropes or whatever you want to call them. Oh, I'm going to be alone forever. I'm never going to find anybody else. Nobody that's going to be right for me, or you know, that was it. That was the best. That was something I'll never have again. Oh. You know, and something I've learned is that logic will fail us time and time again, although it's the truth. Because emotion and logic, they're two separate things for a reason, and one does not solve the other. Logically, this isn't the end. You'll find someone else. You'll be in love again. You'll meet somebody who puts it all together. I know this to be true, that we do not have one person in this life that is perfect for us, and nobody else will ever fill those shoes. That's bullshit. My last partner was one of multiple serious relationships that I've had. And frankly, every single time I've gone through a breakup, I've thought those same things. Oh, I'll never find somebody else, nobody that'll make me feel great. And, you know, me and my most recent partner had our problems, but she certainly did do those things for me. At one point, I was very much in love and thought I was going to marry this person and we were going to have children together and live happily ever after. But as some people will tell you, good relationships seldom fail, and bad ones do, as they should, fail. And I'm sure you're sitting there watching this video, you're probably pretty heartbroken and you're wanting this person to text you or call you or message you, you know what, I want you back. You know, even if you're a dumper, because I've been on both ends of the spectrum, and I broke up with my most recent partner, but I still, you know, it still very much affects me too. I do have those moments where I'm like, do I want to go back? Do I, you know, for that comfort, that familiarity, what I know, you know, this person that I know so much about. It's easier than starting over, right? Well, remember how that person made you feel, why your relationship, failed. How Every time you guys did something fun, it got ruined by fighting or because they did something that made you uncomfortable or whatever, And maybe not every time. But again, bad relationships have plenty of reasons why they fail. My recommendation is to write out all of the things that this person did to you that made you upset, that hurt your feelings. And look at that list every time you miss them and you think, you know what, maybe I'll text them. And remember what they did to you, because if they didn't do anything to you, then you'd probably still be together. And if it's something that you did, well, it may be a little more difficult, but you have to realize understanding the role that you have to play in the failure of your relationship is also important in healing. And those of you who are suffering from betrayal, a partner who cheated or lied, I'll tell you this. Frankly, people who cheat, as I've experienced it in the majority of my serious relationships, that's how they've ended. People who cheat are really doing you a favor. And it's kind of a fucked up way to put it, but the reality is they are doing you a favor because they're showing you that they are willing to violate your boundaries and that they don't have a lot of respect for you. Because anybody who respects you and your boundaries is not going to do that. And people who lie to you about important things, it's the same concept. They're lying to you out of fear. Of course, that's an important point to make. They are lying to you out of fear of you breaking up with them or whatever. But remember, the lie will always get worse the longer they take to tell you. And the concept that them not being honest with you is the concept of them taking a long time not to be honest with you because of out of fear can really be just construed as they're worried about themselves more than you. Because the only reason to keep something like cheating or serious violations of your boundaries from you is because they don't want to lose you, right? Or they don't want the relationship to end. They're very comfortable or whatever. But at the end of the day, that's about them. That's what they want. If they had your best interest in mind, then they would tell you. Okay? So, I'll leave you with this. Of course, there are many fish in the sea, and you may have thought that the person that you were with was your one and only. However, it's bullshit. It's just simply bullshit, okay? Because it's ridiculous to think in the billions of people, even in my, not even, but in my age group alone, the thousands of single people, that you'll never find somebody else. It's ridiculous. It's not only illogical, how it violates simple math, okay? And frankly, people don't talk about it enough, but breakups have just as many positives as they do negatives. Grow, rediscover your passions, rediscover things that you sacrificed for your relationship, your hobbies, your health, mental and physical. And just remember, relationships are the source of your best and your worst memories. But they're the most important thing in the world. Whether it's your family or friends or your significant other. Relationships are the most important thing. Because when you're laying on your deathbed, you're not going to be thinking, I wish I had a better car or a bigger house. you're going to be thinking, man, I wish that I would have spent more time with the people I loved. Love yourself too. That needs to be in that equation, because your capacity to love will only go as far as your ability to love yourself. It will get better. It's kind of cliche to say, but time will help. But feel those feelings, process those emotions, and remember how they made you feel. And don't go back. Because guess what? It'll just happen again 99% of the time. So, good luck, my friends. I love you all. And stay safe. Parker out.